Hey guys, welcome to the interface tutorial, and basically I'm doing this just to get you guys acquainted with the Ableton interface and to help facilitate and speed up our following tutorials. So let's get started. Alright, we're going to start with the beats per minute. So here you'll find it right in this box, which I have selected, and basically this can either slow or speed up the beat of the song, pace of the song. So how you adjust that is you either click and drag up, or drag up, or you can drag down, or you can click and type in, so say for example 101 BPM, or if you don't want to do that, then you can hold command and drag, and this will allow you to fine tune it as well. So say for instance I wanted to get to 102.6, and there you have it. Type it in. Next we have our metronome, which you see is to the right of the BPM, and you can basically turn that on by clicking it, and when it's highlighted yellow, that's how you know it's activated. So you can use this when recording samples in place of the drums if you prefer to create the drum track afterwards. And a small hint for recording, if you right click, you can actually adjust this count in, and basically it'll go click 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 for 1 bar before you actually start to record the sample, so it can give you a reminder of the tempo and the pace. So it's not like the drums or whatever the metronome drops and you're stuck thinking, okay, I hope I have it correctly. It'll kind of prompt you, and just to ensure that everything really starts off at the right time, and is very, very helpful. So I suggest you activate it. Alright, so next we have our browser folders here to the left. So basically what you can do with that is you can close, you can open. And our first browser folder is the live instruments folder. So basically all the instruments that you're going to use within Ableton Live can be found in this respective folder. And also the audio effects as well that come with Live. Next we have our plugin device browser. So basically audio units and VSTs, things that other software that you might download and want to integrate within Ableton Live, this is where you'll find them. And lastly, we have 3 folders which we can customize their location. So in general, this isn't really anything that I use too much, but well, when I say that, I mean the first folder. The second folder is where I point to my samples. So for instance, the songs that I'm sampling or the drum loops that I'm sampling. And I highly recommend that you have that direct access because it facilitates your workflow when you're actually creating an instrumental. Alright, so next we'll go to the tracks. So you can see here, this one is labeled audio, and basically I have 3 drum loops present within this track. So you can get through the tracks just by clicking on the top, and basically to get within the individual tracks you can just double click on either or. These are copies, so you don't really see much changing here. So going back to the audio track, an audio track is where the actual sound files such as the MP3s are held, and you can create an audio track by dragging and dropping audio, or you can come to the top and click insert audio track, insert MIDI track, insert return track, etc, etc. Okay, so basically, let's go back to our drum loop. And this is how you change, I guess, the start and the beginning of the sample. So these flags here, these are called warp markers. So we see that our warp is enabled, unwarping. Basically, these are just different settings. We're not going to go into that right now. We'll stick with the warp marker. Okay, so I'll play a small example for you just so you guys can get a feel of the drum loop. Excuse me, let me solo the track right now. Okay, that's the beginning. And say for instance we wanted to start it here. What we do is slide there. And let's say we wanted to shorten it there, so and there you have it. So that's basically how you use warp markers on your samples. Okay, so next we'll go to the MIDI track, which is basically created when you go to an audio track, you right click it and go to slice to new MIDI track, and you can slice it in tons of different, pretty much endless types of variations, especially depending on if you've made a customized slicing track or not. So we'll just pretend as if we sliced, which we have that present here, new MIDI track. And what a MIDI track is it holds the sound files, but these sound files can be triggered by either your keyboard, which is a great tool. You actually don't need a MIDI interface, or you can use the external MIDI interface. In my experience, I've used both. There's really not much of a difference depending on what you're doing, but for the sake of this tutorial, don't feel pressure to go out and get a MIDI keyboard. It's not necessary, as I programmed the actual track using my Mac keyboard. All right, so moving on, let's see. The samples here are housed within the drum rack. This is the type of instrument that I'm going to show you guys really how to use further in the next tutorials, but basically it's pretty much like an MPC style I guess software emulator, in that we use our customized patch to create this. And let's see here, we're controlling all our samples via, well, you can trigger each sample via different keys on the keyboard, but for the overall settings, we're controlling them via the macro controls. And basically, macro controls are customizable controls that you can map to certain settings, and they allow you to change the settings for all of the samples at once to keep things uniform. So just going through our settings here that we mapped, we have sample start, which, just like the leftmost warp marker, it changes the starting position of the sample. Sample length controls how much of the sample is played. Velocity attack, the length of the time it takes the note to reach its loudest point. Velocity release, the length of time it takes the note to reach its lowest point after you release the MIDI key. Volume, self-explanatory. Transpose controls the pitch. Detune, similar to transpose, but it's smaller and more precise movements. And you really won't use this that much unless you're trying to tune, I guess, old vinyl. And spread, this creates a stereo effect, so it's especially useful if you have mono tracks, or mono audio, yes. All right, so let's go to the track controls. So, for example, you see here, I have this solo highlighted. So basically what solo does is it restricts all the audio that's coming out of the mixer to just that channel only. So you could have a full song already created, but if you want to, say, go back in the drums and just listen to those by themselves, or your bass line, for example, you just click this, and when it's blue, it's activated. And there you go. It'll allow it to play. Let's see here. The large yellow number is basically how you activate or deactivate audio. So essentially, this isn't highlighted right now, which is like the actual song that we sampled, because we don't want it to overplay the actual sample that we made from it. So therefore, it's deactivated. So basically, this just allows your audio to either be on or off, as simple as that. And the clock kind of recording button down here is to trigger the different audio channels. So if it's not highlighted and you're trying to play the samples from that audio track, then they won't trigger. So for example, I'm pressing keys on my keyboard now, trying to trigger samples from this track. However, if I arm it, now I can actually play the samples. And you can arm multiple sample tracks at once. All you need to do is press Command and click. So yeah. You can hear me through the mic. And you can unclick as you please. And yeah, they're deactivated. So I hope I pretty much covered all of the basic things that we're actually going to use in the next tutorials, and I hope that really makes it a lot easier to really whip through the next pieces. All right, so thank you guys for tuning in, and let's get into the next piece. All right, see you soon.